Tom Oar was knocked out by a bull for 2 minutes in 1970. That wasn't his worst day though. After 45 years while living in the wilds of Montana, something terrible happened that could not be fixed by being tough. His daughter, a desperate 80-mile drive, and a report that changed everything were all parts of it. The man who never asked for help needed tools to breathe all of a sudden. No one thought the truth about why he stopped appearing on TV would be so bad. Tom Oar's story doesn't start out in the woods. It begins on March 26, 1943 in Rockford, Illinois. But the Wild West was still in his blood. His dad, Chick Oar, was in famous Wild West shows that went on tour in the US from 1870 to 1920. Not just plays, these were real events. They really did a lot of tricks on horses, shooting and rope tricks that showed people in small towns a glimpse of a rural life that was quickly disappearing. In the 1940s, most American kids were raised with modern conveniences. But Tom grew up in a home that still valued toughness, horses, and being completely independent. Being raised that way leaves a mark. Tom and his bigger brother Jack didn't grow up inside. They grew up outside in fields and farms, with all the freedom that most kids can only dream of. After they turned 7, their dad started teaching them how to do tricks on horses instead of bikes. They learned how to ride them, but also how to stand on them while running, jump off of them, and hang off of them at full speed. It wasn't a game, it was real training, dangerous, strict, and totally addicting. Being at risk became something they learned to deal with. The most important thing is that they learned to trust their gut and treat nature with care. That wild spirit didn't go away as she got older. Tom did something that most parents would be scared of when he was only 15. He quit school to follow his dream of being a rodeo cowboy. He only had his bull rope, his gear bag, and a thumb out on the highway. There was no slow plan or safety net. He took hitchhiking trips through different states, sleeping and eating wherever he could. He was jumping on animals that could kill him in an instant. It was the beginning of the 1960s. There are no phones, credit cards, or people who can help you. Just guts. Still, it worked. Tom didn't just dream about being a cowboy, he was one every single cruel second. The craziest part, his mom took him to the edge of town and dropped him off. There were no lectures or tears, just quiet support from a mom who knew her son couldn't live a sweet life. Afterward, Tom said, "She dropped me off with my bull rope and rigging bag, and I hitched to Ohio." That's not just a line, it's how you live. It shows how deeply his family believed in the ideals of the Wild West. Everything was based on freedom, risk, and being true to yourself. She didn't try to make him different. He became the person he is today because of her help. He became a powerful figure in the world of rodeo. Tom was up there with the best in the International Rodeo Association in just a few years. Horseback riding, riding a bull, riding a bronc. He did more than just join contests. He kept getting in the top 10. There were 8 times he made it to the International Finals Rodeo. It wasn't luck, it took years of hard work. He slept in his truck, ate when he could, and was often hurt while riding. Rodeo was a rough sport in the 1960s. There wasn't much money for prizes or medical care, and the animals didn't care if you walked out of the field or were carried. Still, Tom kept going. Ride after ride, year after year. His hard work paid off with records that not many people could beat. He made it to the first 8 rodeo events at the World Finals. He was in the top 15 for 15 years in a row. He came in 8th place in the all-around in 1970. He rode saddle broncs for 10 seconds, which is 2 seconds longer than the current record. He wrote down everything about every ride, win, and illness. And the rides never stopped. He rode 5 animals in one night, 3 broncs, 2 bulls, and sometimes twice in the same day. He made $1,500 in 3 months, which was more than his father made all summer. He was only 16 years old. There were costs for each ride though. The body can only handle so much. By locking his hand to the bull rope, Tom was able to keep control, but it made his injuries worse. He broke ribs, tore ligaments, and got brain damage that doctors wouldn't fully understand for decades because of the constant beating from 2,000-pound animals. Tom Oar thought that February 14, 1970 would be just another rodeo show. A crowd on Valentine's Day, a venue that everyone knows, and another crazy ride. Tom was at the top of his game at age 35. He had been one of the best rodeo riders in the International Rodeo Association all through the 1960s. Always in the finals and a fan favorite. A lot of people came to see him risk everything. It felt like the same thing every day that day. The rope, gear, and preparation are all the same. As many times as he could remember, he put his finger into the bull ring, but this time it almost killed him. The name of the bull was Woolly Bugger, big, rough, and known for causing chaos. As soon as the gates opened, it started moving right away. The bull's head hit Tom in the head. Tom was knocked out cold in an instant, but his hand was still tied tight. He didn't fall off. He wasn't able to. He was stuck. Woolly Bugger didn't give up. It kicked, stomped, and pulled Tom's naked body across the arena for 2 minutes straight. The bull's weight was crushing his legs. The crowd was shocked to the core. He kept getting stomped on by the beast. The sound was awful, but Tom's quiet was even worse. Wasn't moving. Workers ran into the arena. As the bull thrashed, they worked hard to cut the rope. Every second felt like a very long time. That was 2 minutes ago. They let him go. Tom was taken away on a bed. He was badly hurt all over, from head to toe. The hospital staff worked quickly, but he did not wake up. Not for an hour or two. 3 scary hours passed while he was out. No one was sure if he would awaken at all. Nothing was clear to him when he finally opened his eyes. He had to be told that a 2,000-pound bull almost killed him, and that the bull had died 2 weeks later, probably from hitting Tom on the head. This wasn't the worst part though. It was in the stands. Tom's wife Nancy Oar was there. She had been on a lot of rides, but when she saw Tom's body fall to the ground, she knew something was wrong. She could only stand there and watch as her husband was pulled and hit. For 2 minutes. Of pure helplessness. Her words afterward were that it was the scariest moment of her life. Nancy felt like she was seeing her husband die right in front of her. Everyone else was shocked. She ran with him when he was taken away because she didn't know if she'd ever talk to him again. When Tom woke up in the hospital, the truth hit him hard. The wounds were bad. Head injuries, bruises, and stress that wouldn't go away on their own. Doctors told him not to. People said that both his body and mind had changed. Tom wasn't ready to give up though. He kept riding to get that rush, but something was different. The thrill was going away. The rodeo used to be a sign of freedom, but it began to feel like a cage because of all the noise, danger, and routine. He kept going for more than 10 years. But there was a change inside. The last time Tom rode a wild horse was in 1981, and 18 years of riding bulls. That's more than half of his life. After making that choice, he made the hardest choice of all. He left. It wasn't fear. It was clear. He was tired of having to prove himself to big groups of people. He didn't want anyone to see him test himself. He turned away from the field and looked into the wild. Real fear and real staying alive. That's when he and his wife Nancy found it, way up in the Montana woods. Their search wasn't a mistake. As they rode their way west every summer, they were always pulled to the wild. The Yucca Valley kept calling to them more than any other place. Not only was it far away, but it was almost forgotten. It was in the middle of the huge Kootenai National Forest, 15 miles east of the border with Idaho and 4 miles from the border with Canada. The roads were not very good. It rained for 6 months in the winter, and there were no first responders. They did want that though, being alone. Keep quiet, quite the task. They had their first winter in 1981. It almost broke them. They weren't ready for how cold it was. They stayed though. They learned. The land gave back. There was wildlife everywhere. Animals. Elk, even animals with fur. A good amount to hunt and catch. It was real, but it wasn't easy. That was the main change. Everything was made from scratch. Tom cut down the trees, peeled the bark off, shaped the logs and stacked them to make their house. After that came the barns, which included storage sheds, workshops and places to work on the hides. Each and every board and nail was put in by hand. There were no easy ways out. You had to work hard and wait. They dug wells for heat and water. For light they cut up wood. They had oil lights. They had to be ready every winter. Otherwise they wouldn't have been able to make it. Getting by wasn't the only goal though. It turned into more. Tom found a $3 booklet in a billing store one day, only 16 pages. But there was something old inside. Tanning the brain. Native Americans have used this method for a very long time. It turns out, each animal has just the right amount of brain power to tan its own skin. That's how nature works perfectly. Tom scraped, soaked and stretched his way through the steps in the book. It was hard work. But what did it lead to? It's so soft that you could blow air through the leather. It was strong, breathable and not like anything you could buy in a shop. It became an art soon after this became a skill. And soon enough, other people noticed. They set up a small business in the middle of the woods. They built the store at Willow Bend. Tom made moccasins, buckskin shirts and knife sheaths out of leather, and they sold very quickly. They were a hit with reenactors, survivalists and history fans. He had a way of tanning deer hides that could sell for $100 each, and full outfits made of buckskin sold for even more. It was called the best in the game. The man named Tom Oar wasn't like any other mountain dweller. People in Montana began calling him the professor of primitive living. This wasn't a joke, it was real respect. His fame had spread all the way to the Rocky Mountains by 1995. He got calls from the Smithsonian, National Geographic, and a number of colleges. They were all eager to learn from him. As part of a project called Living Heritage, the Montana Historical Society publicly recorded what he knew in 2001. That's how rare and valuable his skills were. Tokyo and Berlin were among the places where people came to see how he lived. In 2004, a BBC crew filmed his daily life for 3 months. Native American groups, like the Blackfoot Nation and the Crow Tribe, gave him special awards for preserving traditional skills. They almost never do that for people from outside the group. Tom had taught more than 30 apprentices since 1990, but only 4 made it through his tough 2-year program. To pass, they had to use only simple tools to stay alive in the wild for 30 days straight. Then in 2012, everything changed. It all started with a simple chat. An old camera guy that Tim Linhan knew told him about Tom. Tim is a neighbor and used to run a fishing show. The cameraman had made a brand new business called Warm Springs Productions. They were making a show called Mountain Men with the History Channel. There are no players, just real people who live in the woods. The cast and crew drove out to see Tom after Tim mentioned him. One day in Tom's life was filmed. It was enough for one day. Mountain Men first aired on May 31, 2012. Tom, who was 69 years old at the time, became famous on TV suddenly. But he had never been in an acting role before. He didn't change. He did what he always did. He had to hunt, trap, tan hides, and stay alive in the worst conditions that nature could give him. People were hooked. Tom did not try to charm anyone. He didn't brag or yell. His work was calm and careful, like it was from another time. He did it alone, and in silence. He was born in 1943, and had been out in the wild for more than 50 years. He knew how to use animal brains to tan hides. A method that dates back hundreds of years. He used only things he found in the woods to make bows, knives, and clothes. Tom moved slowly and with purpose, while most people today moved quickly through life. Not only was it amazing, it was also beautiful. Fans loved how he kept calm, even when his life was in danger. He once took care of an accident more than 80 miles from the closest hospital like it was any other day. It wasn't a part for him. That's just how he was. Unaffected even when it got very cold in the winter. The people making the show knew they had found something very special. A man who wasn't interested in being filmed. Tom was just now, that was enough. But being famous cost him something. It started out as just a few letters. Someone at the feed shop might know who he is. But very quickly, it changed into something else. About 300 people would go to Tom and Nancy's cabin in the middle of nowhere every summer when the show was at its best. 300. That's true even though their house was buried in the Kootenai National Forest. It is only 4 miles from Canada, and 15 miles from Idaho. There was no cell service or GPS, just trees, dirt roads, and quiet until it wasn't. A picture wasn't enough for them. They wished they could stand next to him and feel what he was going through. Fans said it felt like a divine experience. To Tom and Nancy, it seemed like their calm life was ending. They couldn't go for walks in the morning without someone taking a picture. They couldn't have a quiet night without hearing someone at the door. People with cameras went through the woods to try to catch a glimpse of them working. It wasn't just American people either. Some people came from Switzerland just for their holiday. Some came by plane from Germany, English, and all over the US. They came with gifts, cameras, and stories about how Tom had made their lives better. Some people even told store owners that they came to Montana just to find Tom Oar. A long time ago, that quiet, lost place was marked on maps for people who were going on wilderness pilgrimages. The rise was seen by small companies. People came all year even when it snowed. Tom was nice about it. He shook hands, smiled, and thanked people who came in. But it was clear what was going on. His refuge was now a popular place for tourists to visit. The peaceful spot he and Nancy had picked out for alone time was now full of cars and people talking. Forest sounds were drowned out by fans' footsteps. Tom never whined out of anger, but he always told it like it was. He was thankful. Yes. He loved that people cared. Yes. But he didn't want this at all. Slowly the couple stopped going out in public as much. They were sad because they missed their life, not because they didn't like the attention. The life they made out in the middle of nowhere. Tom Oar's life fell apart when he got a call on April 26, 2015. It was in St. Petersburg, Florida that his daughter Healy Oar had died. She was only 49 years old. It got worse because of the date. March 14, 1966 was Valentine's Day. She was born on that day. She died not long after her 49th birthday, which would have been in 2 months. When the call came in, Tom was a very long way away. He was living in the Yaak Valley, way out in the middle of nowhere in Montana. He had a hard time getting to phones or the internet. Once being alone had brought him peace, but now it stood in the way of him being there for his daughter, which was the most important thing in his life. What made it hurt even more? Keely had been sick for a long time. Tom didn't tell anyone about the facts. He didn't tell anyone about it out of respect. But the fact that she had been sick for a while makes you wonder how much she had to deal with by herself. Tom lived a hard life in the woods, making tools by hand and making it through the harsh winters. Keely, on the other hand, was facing her own battle, which he never saw the whole picture of. The quiet about her illness says a lot. Tom, who talked openly about the hard things about living in the mountains, wouldn't talk about this one. That shows how bad the pain is. Keely wasn't just someone's kid though. She had made her life strong and on her own. She made it in medical sales, which is a tough and difficult job. She also had a strong faith. She was a Christian who clung to her views when things were tough. In 1986, she went to Florida. She built a full life in Virginia after living there. Her mother, Jan Fraser, her brothers, Chad and Matt, her grandma, Mary Jane, and many cousins, such as Sue and Jay Sewell, loved her. She also had an Annie dog, a niece and a nephew. There were many links in her life, even though she lived far away from Tom. It hurt to be so far away. Keely might have needed her dad the most while she was in Florida, but Tom was 80 miles away from the nearest center. It was that far from his home in Yaak Valley to the nearest hospital. It's hard to get to even in an emergency when you live that far away. And when his daughter was in danger, the truth hit him hard. Tom, who was known for being able to handle anything in the wild, couldn't do anything. The way of life that made people respect and admire him also put up a wall between him and the last days of his daughter's life. He never really got over the pain of being so far away. Tom didn't say much after Keely died. He didn't talk to the press or post honors. He did what he always did. But people became aware of the change. There was more silence. Behind the tough mountain man's public image was a father who was sad and kept quiet. There was no way to get out of this. She couldn't be brought back by any handmade tool. He had his own horror. It took place in Montana, on a very cold winter night. After more than 40 years of living alone in the wild without any major health problems, Tom Oar woke up suddenly gasping for air. He was having trouble breathing. It wasn't just a cold or something easy. There was fear written all over his face as he choked on air this time. For a man who had ever been through a mountain storm, a bear, or anything else the mountain could throw at him, this time was different. He thought he might not make it for the first time. Nancy, who had been married to him for many years, saw the fear in his eyes. She didn't wait when Tom told her he needed help. Tom never once asked for help. They had no choice now though. They got in the truck and drove 80 miles through one of North America's roughest settings to get to help. It was very dark and very cold. It felt like a race against time on every turn of the mountain road. Their house was in the middle of the Kootenay National Forest, only 4 miles from the Canadian border. It was so far from anywhere on the map that getting medical help was almost a luxury. Even though her hands were shaking, Nancy kept driving. The headlights cut through the snow. Tom kept gasping for air, and each mile felt like it could be his last. There were tests done and bad news that changed everything when they finally got to the clinic in Libby, Montana. Tom's heart was giving out. He was told he had congestive heart failure, and his lungs were already filled with fluid. A sickness known as lung edema. That's why he couldn't breathe that night. The doctors told him that his heart wasn't beating right. After living in the wilderness for so long, the signs were hard to see. His body had been adjusting until it couldn't anymore. Tom was 79. Until then, he chopped wood, hiked steep hills, hunted his own food. No problem. Now he needed heart meds just to keep going. He was fitted with a defibrillator vest. It could shock his heart back into beat if things went south. The jacket wasn't just gear. It was a lifesaver. It weighed 2 pounds, had sensors and could give up to 5 shocks if his heart stopped. For someone who had never counted on modern tech, this was more than just a physical shift. It was a mental one too. Tom was being made to trust machines with his life, and yet he accepted it. In a quiet moment on camera, Tom said, "We're all gonna die sometime. So you might as well try to enjoy what you got left." It was honest, the kind of advice you only get from someone who's lived through everything and come out the other side. But even he couldn't hide the weight of what it meant. His body, the one tool he'd trusted all his life, was breaking down. Nancy had to make up the difference. Their whole lives had changed. Now there was a cloud of doubt over every task, every trip into the forest, and every moment. Tom's story wasn't just about his heart, though. In 2020, 2 years before the scare, something strange took place. There was a fake notice online. Not a story. A full-on, properly written death notice with names, dates, and even made-up family quotes. It said Tom was dead. A lot of people believed it. Fans went crazy. They started writing honors, condolences, and sharing their favorite memories of the mountain man. Facebook pages were turned into online graves. It wasn't like people were trying to lie, they were sad about the death of someone they really liked. What's wrong? It wasn't true at all. Tom was still alive, but he was hurt. The death notice was too believable. Real events from Tom's life were used. He used to be in rodeos and has been on TV and in the Yacht River Valley. It was so good at mixing fact and fiction that almost everyone fell for it. The reports started up again in 2024. They said Tom had died in Lakeland, Florida, at the age of 81 this time. The same thing. There is no real source or official comment, just broad strokes and dramatic headlines. Lots of people believed it again. The story felt real in part because of that health scare from before. Tom's folks had to help out. Tom Oar, his sister-in-law, told everyone that he was still living on December 21, 2024. He wasn't just living, he had gone to see her that same day to get some homemade popcorn balls. Due to a broken sled, he went on foot to check his traps. You couldn't make up that kind of story. Even the popcorn was real. The lies kept going around for one simple reason: money. People who made content used Tom's name to get people to click on it. More people saw, shared, and clicked on ads for each false story. No matter what the truth was, Tom had become a tool for people who wanted attention. He hadn't been seen as much on Mountain Men since season 9, which didn't help. Fans saw that they asked questions but didn't get replies. They came up with their own. Tom had never liked being famous. In fact, he told me in 2019 that over 300 people had just been to his cabin that summer. Some were Swiss couples on their honeymoon. He didn't want to be a draw for tourists. His only wish was to be at peace again. However, the web does not forget and does not wait for the truth. People still didn't know what to think, even though he came back for a short time in season 12 in 2023. His health had changed. He was getting old, and the wild, quiet, independent life he had built for himself was now all messed up by social media. Behind the scenes, his family, friends, and even the show's makers have been fighting back against the lies. But the fight is hard. The truth takes a while to get around. Lies spread quickly. For someone like Tom Oar, who never wanted the attention to begin with, it has now become the most dangerous thing in the world. He's still alive and standing, but each day is different now. Not only does each step forward feel like a fight against illness, but also against the age of fake news, where the truth gets buried under likes, shared, and viral stories.